My name is Jan Levine. I have a condition known as neovascular pigment epithelial detachment, which affects my central vision. It's the equivalent of someone who really needs bifocals and can't have them. So that limits my ability to read. When an opportunity arose to come to learn about the accessible voting machine, I came in to learn about it, and I will say this right now up front, that any person who is planning on needing to vote and needing accessible voting machines, they need to come in and get trained. It is not something that I found that you could go to your voting place and instantly do it. I found that with the training, I was able to do it. Now, I have to explain about the training. The individual that was working with me had placed in a ballot into the machine to trigger it. How to trigger the machine, I really don't know, or anything about the screens because I cannot see them. However, I was told to put on the headphones and that I would be able to go through it. However, I found an instant problem. And unless the individual had been there to tell me to hit the enter button, I would not have known to instantly start. That would start the program. But what was strange was that when I started the program and hitting that enter button the first time, it went into a continuous, and I mean continuous, loop of telling me the instructions. On most items that you ever work with, always have the instructions once and then they stop. But this time it kept going in a continuous loop, which became kind of odd because I was waiting for the end of it. So we were kind of at a loss, and the individual working with me suggested I hit enter again, and instant, voila, I was on to finally getting into it. It was odd that the displays on the keypad were in uncontracted Braille, considering I, as a Braille reader, read contracted Braille, but I can understand that it would be beneficial to those individuals who have just learned uncontracted Braille, and it would give a wider, but for a normal Braille reader, we read in contracted Braille. So that was a little bit odd reading uncontracted, but it's not something that I would grumble about. Meanwhile, as soon as I got into it and the instructions came up, it talked about orange. And I'm thinking, and I do have to explain that when I did come in to do the demo, I had placed sunglasses on and kept my eyes closed the whole time. So there was absolutely no way there was any visual contact whatsoever when I did my demonstration. Anyway, the instructions at the beginning talked at the beginning of the form itself had said, pick the orange. And when I saw this orange, I thought I was supposed to look for orange, which is kind of strange because I have a loss in colors. So try to find orange would be difficult for me. And obviously anyone else using it with visual impairments might have problems finding orange. But what the instructions were looking for was pick the individuals who were in the orange party. So that wasn't clear to me. However, it did not take long to suddenly realize how easy it was with the wheel to go through what the names were in each section. That was quite easy. Matter of fact, I kept my index finger on the enter button and the using that round hole that was in the wheel in the area to go around. And once I got the hang of it, and I have to tell you, I am like a Garrison Keillor above average person. And when I started out, it took a lot of thoughts for me to finally understand what in the world the setup was about. But once I got through that part, and the learning curve was huge, massive even. And once I got through that, it was a piece of cake. And I felt very empowered that I knew how to do this. So recently, we had the chance to go vote. And voting always consists of my husband and I going together so that I can have assistance. And this time I was really looking forward to being able to use the machine. Now I know how to use it. Now I could do it. And unfortunately, my voting place did not have an accessible voting machine for me. So it was back to having assistance. But I was so looking forward because I could walk to my voting location if possible, and I wouldn't have to have had my husband there. But without the accessible machine, forget it. But as I said, I highly believe every person who would like to learn, or not like to learn, but who wants to vote, using accessibility desperately needs to come in and get trained first, because you're not going to be able to go in there and just figure it out on your own. It takes a little bit to figure out, and I think my training session was a good, at least a half hour, 45 minutes, and I needed that time. It was at least probably, I'd say, a good 5 to 10 minutes before I finally figured out what was really going on. And if you just showed up at a voting location to do that, it just wouldn't work.